T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. My name is Lori Swan, and I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the chat room, we do ask you to keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, so you know when we go live. So it's Wednesday night, and that just means one thing, that we've got Big John with us on the panel. So Ernie, you and Trish just dropped out, didn't she?
She gone.
We'll wake her back. So we're going to welcome to the panel Big John again.
It's your old pal back again. One more time.
One more time. That's
one more again. I always want to say that.
Trish, it says your devices are disconnected, honey. Why don't you go out, pop out, and come on back in, restart your computer or your device, and we will put you back in. So welcome back, Big John. How have you been?
I've been doing well.
Good. It's all that can be expected, isn't it?
That is, yeah. And today's atmosphere been doing okay.
Right? With everything going on in the world, if we can say, I'm okay, well, that's
definitely.
Exactly. So today we're going to do part 3 of our series on Tartaria and the hidden history of our humanity, basically. And so today, for part 3, we are going to talk about a couple of things. First off, we're going to talk about hidden technology, which goes along with the World's Fairs. And we're also going to talk about repopulation. I have a few videos to play. I'm going to start the first one talking. It shows basically lost. There she is. There her is.
Hey.
Well, hey.
I don't know what happened.
It's okay. We got you back.
I think it was the cat earlier. She must have loosened something. I don't know.
I told you, Trish. I told you.
Hey,
the devil.
No, not my kitty.
Aww. All right, so we're going to start with the discussion tonight on the lost technology of Tartaria. And I think we've all looked down this rabbit hole for ourselves, and we've discovered that there's things that we just can't explain. Like I said, we're going to look into these things, which is just the lost technology. So these are pictures. But then we're also going to watch video. It kind of talks a little bit and leads us into talking about the World's Fair and about how the technology that they had back then is not, it doesn't line up with what we're told. So let's just see what this one is first.
Many of the places, temples, monuments.
I don't want to get hit with a copyright strike for the music, so I'm just going to mute it out. But what do you guys think of this?
It's amazing.
It's amazing stuff they got.
I wish I could read the descriptions, what they
Yeah.
were.
Exactly. I wish I could too.
Notice a couple of telephones,
Well,
some
we're going to
audio devices.
Yeah, what's interesting is that these are supposedly from the Tartaria and Empire. But what's even more interesting about this, guys, is when you look at some of the other things that we've discovered throughout history that can't be explained. When you're talking about technology. Let's just take a look at this one. Do you guys know what this is?
I'm not going to say what it looks like.
The Baghdad battery or something.
Yeah, this is it's the dendrolite. This is the light that it's on the hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and they believe that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they.
Go ahead.
I tell you, they had so much stuff that was taken at that time. Now, no, when Saddam dug that up, he dug that up in like in '86, and a lot of that. I truly don't think the United States. I think the United States thought that the Russians went into Afghanistan not to take over per se, but to get some of the Nephilim technology from Afghanistan. And I think that's when the United States was starting to think about it, like, what are they really after over there?
Yeah.
And of course, we could probably say, obviously, it's the opium trade that we went in for that, but it was a lot of,
a lot of other things.
Exactly. And
it's now when I hear about a country invading another country, because I know the truth about Afghanistan and about Iraq. Now, knowing that truth, when I hear about another country invading, another country, I always think about the first thing is what could they possibly have that this other country wants? I don't believe it's not to do with oil. It's not to do with anything. I think there's artifacts that they're looking for.
100%, and it all goes back to the Anunnaki, and that was because that was a big thing before Hitler even invaded Poland. He had the Anunnaki set up since they went down to New Schwabenland in Antarctica in 1933, and he started the Anunnaki to go find any kind of biblical artifact or even ancient artifact. It didn't have to be biblical per se, but it was just anything that had to do with some kind of because they had already went to Antarctica for a reason and have dealt with the fallen entities, and they were just kind of gathering up. And the technology, like I said, I mentioned before with like Nebuchadnezzar having a nuclear reactor. I think all that stuff was there from the cataclysm of the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, Nimrod, of course, got the Stargate, got the bioengineering lab set up. I think Nebuchadnezzar, obviously, a long time later, had that reactor. I think all that stuff was still, guess what, in the same area as the Tower of Babel.
Wasn't right, exactly, and that would be the southern Iraqi desert, correct?
Yeah, about 30 miles south of Baghdad. Yeah.
Wasn't what's his name? The guy there, Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, in '86, he claimed to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated, and he said that because Nebuchadnezzar he dug for stuff. He was known as digging stuff up.
Correct. Yeah, I always found it interesting that he would say that he would pick that particular person to say that he was reincarnated as.
Yes, because he said not because he was a king of Iraq. He dug up stuff. Nebuchadnezzar found so much technology, and Saddam knew that. And Saddam Hussein per se was in the United States Army in 1958. As part of a CIA program. Saddam Hussein is from us. And when he took charge, he got, like I said, they'll put you in charge, but then obviously you outlive your use.
That's what happened in Libya.
Exactly. Yeah. Gaddafi, he was CIA. Castro was CIA. All these dictators are all from the United States. The United States has their hands in everything.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Up on the screen, we've got flying machines. These are also from ancient hieroglyphics.
Yeah, and the same thing that Francis Bacon described in his book.
These flying machines right here that are up on the screen were what also was described that they saw when down in Antarctica.
They need to have stuff like that here now, man. Look at
the one
look
right
at them.
here. This
Yeah.
one right here. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. This one right here looks like one of our military helicopters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
This one right here, this flying machine, looks like the one that they reported they saw in Antarctica. These right here, this looks like the blimp that everybody's heard of the Hindenburg, but
Yeah.
that's the only blimp that people have heard of in the past. But there was literally tens of thousands of flying ships in our skies in the 17 and 1800s.
That's like an air yacht. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think the Hindenburg was, in my opinion, a false flag, so they got rid of the airships.
I'm gonna one right here, flying machines. Look at this one. How about this? Can we explain this? Can you guys see that? Let me pull it up a little closer.
A laptop?
Yeah, look at this. It's even got the USB ports on the side.
But it's stone. I guess that's not the literal laptop, but it's just representing a laptop.
I don't know.
Well, they had so much, and I never saw the thing, but there was so much talk. I'm telling you, when the CEO of Hobby Lobby had those real tablets, it was like they told him, we don't care if you got a store, bud. You're going to get those back. They really got him. I'm telling you, he got the talk. He got what I call the talk.
The talk, yeah.
The talk. He got the talk.
He got the. You're coming with us in the middle of the night in a van, not down by the river, but in a
head covering
in an undisclosed location where we're just going to have to talk with you and kind of convince you to see it our way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, I have a weird question on those stone people that you just had up with the laptop. Could that have been like maybe something frozen in time instead of it being like a marble carving? Maybe it was like what happened with Lot's, well, not Lot's wife, but maybe these people turned to stone or something, because the detail is so.
Well, speaking of details when it comes to the stone carvings, I've been watching a lot of videos and paying attention to a lot of the old carvings from back in the Middle Ages, and I'm going to tell you something. Have you seen the intricate the vein system that they have in these carvings and these?
I've seen some, yeah, and it's incredible, the detail. But I'm just wondering, like, if you saw them in person, are they human size? Like, I mean, obviously, if it's like 3 feet tall, then it's probably just a carving, But I mean, just I'm wondering.
This is actually an ancient Greek grave marker. I don't know, and they're saying, yeah, and talking about time.
Trish, you got me thinking of Han Solo, how he was in stone in Star Wars.
I mean, it seems like we've seen it in many movies, right? Where they freeze the person, they turn into stone. I don't know. Did it happen to Medusa or something? It just seems like it's been a story told many times.
Yeah, that's what Medusa could do, was turn you to stone. Now, I remember the talk of the unclassified CIA documents about the Russian soldiers encountered that UFO, and it turned them to stone because they went and bothered with it or something.
Well, I'll be darned. Maybe there is technology that did that. If we're wondering where all the bodies went, maybe the bodies are the statues.
Doesn't the Bible say? Doesn't the Bible? Isn't there a verse in the Bible that says if we can think it, we can achieve it?
Yeah.
So I mean, if we can think of the technology, then we have the ability to achieve that technology. Correct?
Yeah. You would
I mean,
think
R.
so.
Kelly said the same thing in one of his songs.
What did he say?
Well, then it must be true.
I mean, but like let's just say theoretically that did happen. Nobody looked like they rolled out of bed and have a messy bun.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, nobody turned a stone like in the middle of something. But the time, here's the thing about, like, if we talk about time shifting and if some people have noticed it and talked about it, that, maybe a parallel universe or time existing at the same time as you, like you're in like two different places. When I first got on TikTok, I remember the videos were such a craze about how these people were like finding items that were theirs, but
Oh, I remember that.
Remember that they had them on, right? But they would find the exact same. Now, the one I remember the most is like a locket of this woman had a locket, I guess, of her mother's picture, like a little heart locket necklace, and it was like on the ground, but she still had it. But she said like there was a lightning storm, this and that, and she's like, there is no way this could have been duplicated. I never had it duplicated. You know what I mean? It's like it didn't really go viral. I don't know. To me, it seemed true, and I was like, well, if you believe in that, like the body, soul and spirit, that a plant, an animal, and a human has, one has all three, obviously us, and then the other ones have just a body or just a soul, but not a spirit. Animals are innocent; they have a soul, but they don't have a spirit. Mm-hmm. But it's like, but something we make with our hands is just an object and time. And do we really believe in time? And like, we know time because of what? Because our parents told us to wear a watch. A time is night and a day. So everything else is like made up with the Vatican and the Romans. Days of the week, hours and the clock, all that stuff's all from like a system.
Right.
But before that, you only knew day and night. It's like you only wear a watch. You only got to be on time for work because you're told to. There is no, like there's nothing set in stone per se that you have to do anything with time. So how do you know time's even really real if God is time?
Well, that's a good point.
It's like Paul says, redeem your time. I think he really meant redeem the Lord with, your relationship with the Lord, for the days are continuously evil. I don't think he even meant anything about no day or night. Like, why does he care about that? He's preaching. He's trying to bring back, these people back from the abyss. I just don't think he would say, redeem your time, so you got to go to work tomorrow and, and pay your taxes. I just don't think he had anything to do with any worldly thing in his epistles.
Christian says it's not the Bible. Actually, it is in King James Version, and it is in Ephesians 3:20. It talks about what did I do? I just passed it. Give me just a second. Anyways, King James. Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all we ask or we think, according to the power that worketh within us. So basically, if we can think it, we can achieve it.
It was also the main point of the book too. I put it in chat. The Think and Grow Rich book by Napoleon Hill. It's one of those Amway things,
Yeah, I used to love that book.
This was a verse, and my husband always, when I tell him that I don't believe that, we've gone to the moon because I don't, because I always give him the verse that says that, the earth is for mankind and the heavens is for God. And he always says, he always throws this verse at me, and he says that, if we can think it, we can achieve it. And there's an actual verse, and I'm gonna ask him about it in just a minute. I'm gonna look what's on the screen. Is this what you were talking about, Trish?
Yeah, just the detail is just so amazing.
Yeah.
In some sculptures, and today they don't. How come you don't see modern sculpture today? Why not? How come nobody's doing it? They poop and pee in a bucket and put that on the wall and call that art. Talk about going backwards.
Not only that,
I've seen the Glow version.
But a lot of these people that did these sculptures did them behind closed curtains. They did them so other people couldn't see them. So did they have some sort of alternate technology that they were using? Because and I can't find them right now, but there's literally some where you can see um,
The veins and
the veins. Yeah, let me
wisp
see
of
if I can.
hair and
Yeah, that's pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, if you can sit there and you got the veins, and it's carved out of just one piece of marble. It's not, I guess I can't find. I can never find anything when I want to. I swear.
and who does it now? Nobody really sculptures now.
No, nobody usually
I
does it
mean,
now.
maybe the wax museums, but that could be a mold. I don't know.
Yeah, nothing with stone like that. Not like you said, especially the stuff you see if you go to any ancient Roman or even like I think that some of the best stonework is or was in Baalbek, in Lebanon. That had some of the largest buildings, and they say even like the landing spot for UFOs and some of the largest obelisks. And I know Russia went in there and cleaned house in the 80s. I believe, my opinion, that's where Russia got their Stargate was from Baalbek.
Well, I mean, it's just making me think. Well, maybe what if those were the real people and they were just frozen in stone, and that's why they don't sculpture like that anymore because it never really existed.
Yeah, that, and just like I said before, I don't know if I got to my point because I ramble, but about the whole time thing. Who's to know even what time that even happened? You know what I mean? They can say, well, this was in AD, but who really knows that?
We wouldn't
Who?
have a way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everybody is just told. You're just told when that happened. You learn that in a book. It's passed down, but it's kind of like the story with Bigfoot. All the base is the same, but the details are different because you got too many people telling the story.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, the base of it is it's a non-human large thing, but
that
then
disappears.
Yeah, and then the details are all different no matter who you talk to. And yeah, obviously, people in here believe that it's real. I do, but it's like, well, when did that happen? Because here's a fact: even like with in British Columbia and the loggers, they were killing these things by the hundreds. And the Smithsonian was gathering all them things up, all the skeletons.
Right.
And that was literally in the 1890s. That was in newspapers from British Columbia. That there was that.
You can actually find newspaper clippings even here from the United States talking about giants, talking about bones, talking about how they've been dug up. A lot of them were in Ohio, the Ohio giant mounds, I think they call them.
Even the people from even the tribes from Ohio that talked about the six fingers. I saw an article about that the other day. There was Indian tribe in Mississippi River Valley that talked about the people having the six fingers, six toes. Wow. And that wasn't long ago. That was like in the latter 1800s. But it's like, who's to say really? That's what always got me. It's like, what if the devil's in the details? What if like they say, well, the Revolutionary War happened in these years. It's like, did it? Can you really confirm that?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless somebody's over there telling you, who knows what's going on? Ukraine could be a parking lot by now. Would we know it?
No.
Right. Would we know it? Exactly. Well, we wouldn't know it unless it was written in a history book, correct?
That's what I'm saying. It's like everybody's taught the same thing. It's like a system. It's a system that they had set up, and it's the same playbook as from like Sidon with Pythagoras. That's where they had the second incursion of the fallen angels and women, and it was all written. Pythagoras was known to write things, and then okay, all your philosophers. Well, where these people come from? They're all Canaanites. Every philosopher was a Canaanite. They all come from the Phoenicians. Those are all Canaanite people.
Mm.
They wrote all the books. They write all these, whatever, fables, stories, nobles, whatever they call them.
Every single author from ancient times, you can go back and you could see that they were educated by the the grand elite.
Yeah, all the basically They're going to get
kind of
mad.
how they now, kind of
All
like
the
now,
Freemasons.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So indoctrinated, and maybe
Let me tell
put
you guys
into
something.
place or groomed for that role.
You know,
If you
the whole
guys-
thing with, I don't want to interrupt y'all, the whole thing real quick with I believe the Rosicrucians were some of the oldest. And I think those people, I don't really care for them because they do exist today. I know that for a fact. They were the ones who went off. Now, listen, I like the story of Mary Magdalene. I really do. I think that's a good story. I think that it's real. I think she was a real person. I don't think that she had anything to do with some kind of hookup club scene with Jesus. I totally am against that. And I think the people that followed her, because they thought that she was carrying the children of him, and those are Rosicrucians, that they stuck with her. I don't think she really started that cult per se, but I think they were with her at the time that she was alive. And I think that's where all that comes from. But the Rosicrucians, they were some of the heaviest people, including Francis Bacon, who was Shakespeare. And obviously we all know that Shakespearean literature and theatrics and all that has molded so much in American society. And I think that's why his New Atlantean beliefs came along with the founding fathers. And I think that's just my opinion, how America was formed by theatrics and just a simple story of Rosicrucian belief of this bloodline of Jesus, Da Vinci Code stuff, and then obviously in a cult democracy with the Egyptians.
And that's what I think they call the Druids, right?
Yeah, definitely, exactly, yeah.
And so the elite, or I don't know about the elite, but a certain movement that starts with a letter of the alphabet, there's a faction of them that are saying that JFK Jr. and the orange one are. I'm not saying that derogatory. I'm just talking in code. They say that they are of that bloodline, Druids.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Druids. And I think the only person who I've ever heard expose the Druids was Jordan Maxwell. It took a long time for him to get to the point, but he connected a lot of things that I've never heard before. I've never heard anybody ever explain stuff like that. He's how America is built with like he described the court system with the game of basketball. It's like exactly the same thing.
Autumn of 1848, Abraham Lincoln was up in Niagara Falls and he was giving a speech. You guys ever hear about his speech?
I've heard that before, yes.
He says, it calls up indefinite past when Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered on the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam first came from the hand of his maker. Then as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now.
100%. See, Abraham Lincoln was the highest ranking Rosicrucian in the United States at the time. The Order of the Lip.
He said it.
He did say, because he knew. You know, because Abraham Lincoln's real father was from the French monarch. Now, when Marie Antoinette and them were killed, they had their toddler son go live with the King of England. And he came to America, and that's the hidden thing. That child changed their last name, and their family still owns all the railroads in America till this day. And that's the real French monarch that controls behind the scenes.
Interesting.
And that was Abraham Lincoln's. His real father. Was that his last name was Spring, but that he was part of the family of the French monarch family of the toddler son of Marie Antoinette.
Wow.
Interconnected.
Yeah, they all. Yeah, that's how they do.
Yeah, that's why when a lot of people say, "Oh, this person or this person or this person is going to run for president or an office," you can pretty much sit there and you could tell who's not going to get past a certain point, because unless you've got the bloodline, you don't reach above. You're not going to be chosen to run through that office.
It's exactly it. It's so strict ritual. If you have the Freemasons at the House of the Temple doing the apotheosis ritual during every inauguration,
yeah,
why are they doing that? You know what I mean? It's like it's because why is Washington D.C. built like that?
Well, you can sit there. You can put the argument out there as well. We've always done it this way. It's tradition. But
it's a bad tradition.
But is it really tradition, or is this something? If it's tradition and not superstition, you could go one time without doing it, but they don't.
Yeah, they don't, because they have to do it.
They have to do it. Exactly.
They have to. It's how the things work for them. That's how they get results. They have to do the ritual.
And that's why their timestamp with the numbers is always on certain things, because they have to do it a certain way. They have to do it by the numbers. They have to do
that's right.
It,
yeah.
They have to do it by the star charts.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. That's exactly what we talked about way earlier in the shows, is how the 3 stars line up in Washington, D.C. on the Pennsylvania Avenue, looking through Capitol Hill. The stars of Virgo. Are
those the same stars that show up that are above the pyramids?
That's Orion's belt. No, these 3 are different. They're in line only with Washington, D.C. and the signs of Virgo, which is Ishtar. So that's why they built it like that behind her dome belly building. But yeah, the Orion's belt is the Giza Plateau.
Gosh, interesting. I'm going to pull up a video. You guys continue talking, but I'm going to pull it up. I just saw it the other day. There are buildings that were supposed to be built in Washington that weren't.
Well, I was thinking that, to me, it sounds like they are the slaves. If they have to keep everything to a certain time stamp, to a certain day, and they have to marry whoever they're told to me, it sounds like they're the slaves.
Well, that's what they're used to, because they command from Lucifer. And it's like, and they probably know Lucifer doesn't like them, but it doesn't matter to them, because they're getting, if it's what we believe as followers of Jesus, like, well, this has to happen. There'll be no time like it, and it won't be a time like it ever again, but it has to pass.
Right.
And then it's like, well, then they got to pay the penalty with going in the pit with him. And then he won't like them when they get down there. But it's just like a game. It's all it is. It's how many people can I get to go in the pit with me?
Exactly.
It ain't nothing else. That's how simple it really is. And, like, we could talk. We could talk about these things, Egyptians or any kind of conspiracy or whatever we want to call it, and we could talk about the fall of the United States and invasion and this and that. But it's like, in the end, the whole world is going to just have to have this one system. One guy is going to control it. We're going to make a choice whether we follow him or perish. And then Jesus shows up, takes everything back, makes some peace, and then has the white throne judgment. And it's like, there it is. There's nothing really else to it. You just have to wait for those events to happen, But in the end, it's just one choice. Am I going to follow the beast, or am I going to follow the Lord?
Correct. And we're starting to see that now. We're starting to see people having to make that choice.
For sure.
That thing we're not supposed to talk about, I think, was a precursor. I think that was their way of seeing who's gonna follow what, who's gonna fall in line with the things that are coming. My husband's sister, she made a comment, which my husband and I both looked at each other kind of like, wow. But she said, David, that's my husband. She goes, David, we are rule followers. And him and I looked at each other and we're like, wow.
Was she gaslighting him or something?
No. So they had a discussion on the thing we're not supposed to talk about in the arm. And, it was when we were his mother's funeral, and they were all double, thing in the arm, and him and I weren't. And after we left there, she had said she messaged my husband. She says, I've been thinking about a Christmas present for you and Lori. She said, but the only thing is the thing that I'm looking at to give you guys, you would have to have the thing in the arm. And my husband says, absolutely not. He didn't even have to think about it. He said, absolutely not. He goes, we won't do it. And he goes, I can't believe you guys have even done it. She goes, well, we are rule followers.
That's the
Jeez.
mindset that people are put into. It's Stockholm syndrome. It's the most simplest of psychology.
Yes, absolutely. I always say that, Stockholm syndrome and, so what's the other one?
Cognitive dissonance, or
Cognitive dissonance and Stockholm syndrome go hand in hand. Absolutely.
Yeah, they sure do.
They do.
I mean, I'm a rule follower for the most part, and I'm a team player, but there's I draw the line.
I draw the line at something that affects my salvation.
Right.
Yeah, or my health.
I don't go out breaking the law. I don't go out and shoplift. I don't jaywalk. I don't speed. I don't drive a car that's not inspected or insured or whatever.
You don't jaywalk?
I follow the law.
Lori,
even I jaywalk.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is I follow. I'm not a law breaker, but when it comes to my salvation, I'm not a rule follower. I have to draw the line. I have to draw the line for myself in wow.
Me too.
And when she said that, I was like, that's just craziness. I found the video I wanted to play for you guys. It talks about Washington, D.C. But I want you guys to pay attention. Just when I was watching it, it just blew my mind. And I'll stop it when it gets to the part just so we can draw attention to it. These are buildings that were not built but should have been built in Washington.
Washington, D.C. is a city of monuments and memorials. Often built of stone and in styles that harken back to the ancient world, they give an impression of permanence, and in many cases have become so iconic that it's hard to imagine anything else.
You guys read what's on the wall of the Lincoln Memorial? They call it a temple. Has anybody ever noticed that before?
No, not at all. That's blasphemous.
In this temple.
Well, it's a pantheon. It's a pantheon building.
I just never I knew it. I saw it. I assumed that's what it was, but I never knew it was written on the wall. Yeah. It goes on.
Surprised me whatsoever.
Standing in their place. But for every monument that was built in the capital of the United States, there were a myriad of alternative design proposals.
Go back
some
to that
memorials
one, Lori,
never ended up seeing the light of day at all.
Yeah.
Here are a couple of examples of the United States.
That right
there
there,
were a myriad of
that is the Satan's seat of
alternative
Pergamos.
Oh, you're talking about this
Right
one.
there. That's the same
You're
one.
right.
That's the same one that Hitler had taken down out of Turkey and brought to Berlin.
And
then
Obama.
That's the same one. Yes, Obama had the same one behind him during his
inauguration.
When he won. That's right.
Wow.
Yep.
That is Satan's seat of Pergamos that Hitler took. That is the real one out of Turkey he took.
So they were going to rebuild that in Washington, D.C., but it never got rebuilt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's too obvious now. People be like, oh, what?
Right.
That was built in the capital of the United States, there were a myriad of alternative design proposals, and some memorials never ended up seeing the light of day at all. Here are a couple of examples of the Washington that could have been. The monument to George Washington towers above the city that bears his name, but the structure we see today is only part of what was intended to be built. The original design was the winning entry into a competition held in 1836 by a private society. Created by architect Robert Mills, it called for a 600-foot Egyptian-style obelisk ringed by a temple-like structure at the bottom, featuring 30 columns, one for each state in the Union at the time. Construction, according to this plan, commenced in 1848, but the project turned out to be too expensive. To cut costs, the temple structure at the base had to be put aside, but the society's collected donations still fell short, and in 1854 work was halted altogether. The structure had only been finished 1/3 of the way up, and it would remain like this until after the Civil War, when Congress assumed responsibility for its funding. In 1884, the Washington Monument finally stood finished, and although somewhat shorter than originally intended, it was still the tallest building in the world until the end of that decade, when it was
Shorter
surpassed
than
by the Eiffel
intended,
Tower.
but that thing was
This
exactly
was far from the first plan to build a monument
666.
to Washington, though, and already in
Yeah, it's exactly 666 feet. It's 555 above and 111 below, correct?
Yeah, it's 666 for sure.
Yep.
In 1799, this proposal for a pyramid-shaped structure was made by Benjamin Latrobe. There were also a number of alternate ways in which Robert Mill's plan could have been finished. In 1877, Henry Searle created a more elaborate design with 3 terraces at the bottom, whereas the sculptor Vinnie Ream proposed simply using the unfinished obelisk as the base for a grand sculpture of the president. Other designs would have turned it into something completely unrecognizable, like this one from 1879, which would have converted the obelisk into a Gothic tower, or this extremely grand and ornate design. The Potomac River is the defining natural feature of Washington, D.C., and over time, numerous proposals have been made for a monumental bridge crossing it. The most audacious of these designs was put forward in 1887 by the architectural firm Smithmeyer and Peltz. Their bridge gave the impression of a medieval fortress and included 2 massive towers in the middle, as well as a number of turrets, all elaborately decorated in the Romanesque style. The structure would connect the city with the Arlington National Cemetery, the burial place of thousands of Union soldiers, and was to serve as a memorial to the Civil War general and president Ulysses S. Grant. This was actually Smithmeyer and Peltz's second proposal, the first one being a bit more modest, but neither of them were ever built. By 1901, the idea of dedicating the bridge to Grant had been abandoned, and a new design by Edward P. Casey and William H. Burr was adopted. But once again, talk of building it fizzled out. Then, in the 1920s, yet another design was made by McKim, Mead and White, and this time the project actually got off the ground. In 1932, the Arlington Memorial Bridge stood finished, uniting both physically and symbolically the North and South. Built in a discreet neoclassical style, the final product lacks towers that could obstruct views, and complements the other memorials of the city. Constructed between 1914 and 1922, the Lincoln Memorial stands on the banks of the Potomac and terminates the National Mall to the west. Designed by Henry Bacon in the shape of a neoclassical temple, it has become one of the most popular works of architecture in the entire United States. But it may well have been built on a completely different location and by a different architect. The commission tasked with finding a design for the building had also invited the architect John Russell Pope to put forward some proposals. Like many others, Pope was not a big fan of the swampy site where the monument now stands, and focused his attention on 2 alternatives. One of his proposals would have placed the monument on Meridian Hill and featured a 100-foot wide staircase leading up to a Greek-inspired temple overlooking the city. Another was located on the grounds of the Soldiers' Home in Northeast Washington, where Lincoln drafted the Emancipation Proclamation. This version consisted of a round structure with columns encircling a statue of Lincoln. He was also asked to submit designs for the site by the river, and perhaps in a last-ditch effort to discourage its use, he put forward a series of radical designs. 2 of them took inspiration from the ziggurats of ancient Mesopotamia, one being square and the other being circular. Another one was shaped like an Egyptian pyramid with classical porticos on each side, and continuing the pyramid theme, he also made a Mayan-inspired design with a large flame burning at its top. Henry Bacon also made designs that ended up being scrapped, like this monumental colonnade with a statue of Lincoln in front of it. The newest memorial in Washington, D.C. is dedicated to Dwight.
Okay, that was the. I just wanted to get to the ancient-looking ones that that they were talking about. Why is it they always go back to the pyramids or the the architecture that reminds us of the Tower of Babel?
That's always that's their bloodlines. That's because with the architecture, that's what's so important about architecture is that Nimrod is the father of Freemasonry. I think that's the first guy because he built the Tower of Babel, and that's what's so important to them because even the architecture before the flood was important to them, and the architecture on Mars and Rahab. It's like none of that stuff's new, and they take that to heart. That's where they come from with the building. To what does it do? It always tries to defy God.
Correct. Yep. And that's exactly what they try to do. Is they think that they can not only defy him, but they think they can defeat him.
Of course, and that's why. And the thing is too, if we say the Lord, we're talking about Jesus. If a Luciferian says it and they build these uncapped pyramids and sacrifice people, the Lord for them is Lucifer. It's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say when they give a blood sacrifice, I have seen writings of that they say we give up these blood sacrifices to the Lord. They're talking about Lucifer, not anything about Jesus. That's how close it is.
It's a title, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like sir.
Yeah, exactly. And the Lord, they use the same thing because, like I said, the Antichrist doesn't mean against, it means instead of. You can't have somebody coming on the scene doing horrible things right away. People are going to be like, that's the Antichrist.
Right.
He has to come and,
he's
shake
going
hands.
to do what every other narcissistic person does is he's going to come on scene and he's going to love bomb us.
Yeah.
And people are going to love bomb him back.
Bad, big time. It's going to be, he's going to be, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Kingpin. He's going to be like a Roy Munson in the 70s.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
He's going to come in there taking your slice of pizza off your plate, and you're going to let him do it.
He can't come in here with guns blazing because everybody will be like, we know who you are. But he's going to come in here. He's going to love bomb us. He's going to show us peace. He's going to show us love. He's going to fix a lot of the problems that we have in the world. Yeah. And he's going to get us to what? Trust him. Exactly.
And it's just like, when they do their little blood rituals and they have cups with blood that give up to the Lord. I've seen these writings. There are carvings out there that have this on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always been. It's nothing. It's not like, oh, they made it, and they bought it at, wherever Ross, and then you use it. This is old stuff. This and every culture has it. It's all the same thing. Every culture has ran into the fallen, the Egyptians, the original.
They're not going up to Michael's and grabbing some plastic, what do I say? These plastic chalices.
Yeah, these Halloween chalices. Yeah,
right. These are ancient. Yeah. These are passed down from the time of Solomon's temple and before that.
And before that, yeah, they even have some things from. People are going to get mad because they say Mars ain't a planet. They got stuff from Mars. I know it for a fact. Mm-hmm. And it has these things because it's happened.
I don't think we're being taught the whole truth on Mars either, because with the things that are coming back that we're seeing, it's just.
It's
we got too many questions about Mars.
The Viking Pro of 1958 had those few photographs. And I'm sorry, but they had, whether the architect or designer was a believer or not, they took the photographs and, you give an architect, you give them a photograph of something, they're going to figure in margin of difference. they're going to figure in what the real size is on the photograph. You know what I mean? This is how they even build things. They get, like today they'll use drone technology to see like landscaping, like, well, this is how we're going to build this, or they're going to get, they're going to take measurements, they're going to survey. So they could, in 58, they could take the picture of the Viking probe, face on Mars, pyramid on Mars. How do those things have the same 72-degree measurements as the Giza Plateau?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
If it's not real.
When you say about how they can take things and they can pretty much decipher it, it brought to mind, there's a story behind the movie Dr. Strangelove. And during that time, and I don't know what the plane was, but let's do it in modern times, the B-52. So at the time with Dr. Strangelove, I don't know if it was the B-52 or not, but it was a secret. The cockpit was a secret. And yet when they put this movie out, they were so close to the real thing that the CIA and the FBI pulled in the people that were making the movie, and they were like, how did you know with the cockpit of this, I don't even know what it was, B-52 or whatever it was, how did you know what it looked like when it's top secret? We haven't even put it out there. Well, pretty much that's how they're doing things, is whether it's by guessing, which I don't believe it is, whether it is by, what is that called when you do the remote viewing?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
If you guys don't know about remote viewing in the CIA, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. That's how I believe the Illuminati card game was created. You have these things that they can pull the technology. They don't necessarily need the schematics for something. They can pretty much pull the technology by just remote viewing. Yeah,
definitely. And that's, Kubrick got in a lot of trouble too, of course, with Eyes Wide Shut, but also people don't think about his 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Right.
Kubrick had so much inside knowledge, whether he could remote view or not, or just was told that. He showed a lot of stuff that they had.
Yep. Yeah. I heard there's a rumor that the Rothschilds have a picture of Kubrick up on their wall. After Eyes Wide Shut and after they had him silenced, they put up a picture of him to immortalize him on their wall as sort of a trophy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Isn't he the one that came out about the moon?
Yeah, he supposedly filmed it in a studio over in Europe.
And then they wrote a song about it, right? What's that song?
Yeah, by
Made in a Hollywood basement.
Flea, yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kubrick. Now I saw. It's been a long time, but they had like a lot of different things that he put in the Shining about NASA and stuff. Like that the kids wearing like an Apollo rocket shirt.
An Apollo rocket.
A lot of different things. I know that there were like a lot of stuff. I was like, well, that's kind of like, I know people reach for things, but that was kind of like out in the open.
Well, I'm going to show you this. Look at this. Look at these people walking. We've got Arthur C. Clarke, Kubrick, and the NASA scientists all walking together.
Oh yeah, Clarke was a British SAS. That guy.
He's weird.
Yeah, he knew a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he was a weirdo though. Woo.
Hey, that kind of looks like the Walmart logo, or even the CERN thing.
Oh yeah, this is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Kubrick showed a lot of stuff in there. That's probably obviously Walmart and all. I mean, it's the symbolism. I mean, they try to say that's I'm not a QAnon, but they'll be like, well, the symbolism is their downfall or whatever. But yeah, it's true. Symbolism that's what they have to do. It's part of the ritual.
So, which side is Kubrick on? Was he trying to tell us something, or was he told to tell us something?
Well, I think Kubrick definitely was letting the cat out of the bag. Kind of like, I think a lot of them turned from that. I think they all have a lot of like Abraham moments. Like, they leave Sumeria because they don't want to mess with it. But just like John Lennon, he made an album that was exposing these Pandora's box parties in New York City. And guess what? They dispatched Chapman to go kill him.
Yep.
So there were, whether or not John Lennon was a Luciferian, he was exposing. That's the whole thing about this. When you expose them, when you give people the knowledge, here's the thing. As we sit here, anybody else that's anywhere in this world at any given moment, and they tell somebody, hey, guess what? The pyramids were there for a long time. It doesn't matter if they believe it. The point is, it's in their pineal gland now.
Correct.
And when the gland at some point is exposed to this awakening, whether it be you turn to Jesus or whatever happens to you, you'll know that if you hear something about it, you're going to be like, wait a minute, I heard that before.
You planted the seed.
Exactly. Whether it grows into, like the Lord Jesus talks about, or it doesn't, I call that the mercy of the Almighty God. That you may not believe in him, and I want people to believe in him, but I think that's a mercy seed that he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you just to take. You ain't got to take the whole thing, but I'm going to give you something. And I think that pisses off Luciferians something horrible. Because you just give them something. You give them something.
Another thing is these people who have been taken over by these entities. The problem with a person the problem with that is the fact that person, the original person, still has a soul, and that soul at some point has the ability to fight back.
Yeah.
And so there are moments of clarity where this person, especially if they're close to death, may get a moment of you know what, I've got nothing to lose now.
What's the point?
That's the thing. It's like, it's all, because it's kind of like when the roaches scatter when you turn the light on. The occult, they hate when you expose them.
Yeah, they do.
And that's what Kubrick did. Because I tell you, every time it's obviously not the show's fault, but every time I come on here, I'll have a time where entities will kind of come after me because I tell people things. We talk about, not only me, I'm not special, just us on here. When we expose things and we put stuff in people's minds that never heard it before, it doesn't matter if they go believe it. No. The fact is, it's there. So if it shows up to them by any means necessary, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I heard that on Global Watchman News. And then it's like, well, you know what? Maybe they were right. Why am I seeing it? I don't know them people. You know what I mean? It's that little tiny moment is when they all, not them, but the people, the entities and Luciferians, they all get pissed at you.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not immune, and everybody in the chat room listening and everybody up in the panel can tell you that we are not immune. We have had technical difficulties. It's amazing. We get certain people on here and start talking, and I'll lose internet.
We know where it's coming from.
Oh yeah, we do. Absolutely, we do. Yeah. So let's see. We're an hour in. So let's kind of push to technology. Let's go into the next topic on the list here of technology. When we talk about fallen angel technology, not all of that technology is available at the moment. A lot of it is still hidden, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I think that when these countries go into these other countries, I don't know. Does anybody else get the idea that there's kind of like a what is it called? Where you've got to go and you've got to find things. What's it called? That game?
Easter egg hunt.
Like an either an Easter
scavenger.
Egg hunt, a scavenger hunt. It's like
I was about to say hide and go get it.
Like a scavenger hunt. I mean, these countries, they know this. They know the technology's out there, just like we knew that Iraq had the Stargate, and we knew that that we had to somehow get in there. So they create these conflicts so that we can go in there and grab the technology. But do you think there's some sort of scavenger hunt where they need so many stargates to activate them.
Yeah, there's a like
because each
an agenda
stargate,
with that.
each stargate is hooked up to a certain other point, right? So like one stargate is hooked up to, I don't know, say Orion's belt, another one's hooked up to the moon, another one's hooked up to Saturn, another one's, so I mean, even if you get one, you're not going to be able to go to all places.
Yeah, the original idea with that, and what I discussed before about the image of the Rahab with looked like a pincushion. Now that was seen. I saw the one and saw the I saw the other one in per se real life. May or may not have seen in real life. Anybody listening? So, but the other one was dug up in Mexico City, and it's the same image. It looks like a pincushion. Now, from what I heard and what I can decipher as my own common sense is, they were escaping Rahab before it literally got blown to smithereens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where they were going, that's just each one's something different, right? Maybe they just escape you out of that, and nobody knows where they take you. Now, the ones that are recovered are more powerful than others, and obviously, there's only one. I believe there's only one that actually opens up the gates to heaven, to the second heaven.
And I think they're still searching for that one, right?
How do you capture a Stargate? I mean, like if the U.S. said, "Oh, we found this Stargate, now we're going to take it back to," how do they capture it? How do they take it? I mean, isn't
I think
it
we got to
kind of
refer
like
back to movies. To be honest with you,
it's just that they're in this just in a crate. And now, here's the thing too. Now, the Stargate that they say came from
Iraq,
Baghdad was the one that you see in the first Hellboy movie.
right?
I don't know what that looks like.
Well,
I mean, is it like what you're showing? Is
Here,
it
let me
just
find
like
it.
Okay.
Let me find it.
So it's kind of just like a thing that turns into a doorway when they turn it on or something?
Yeah, it looks like water. It's literally, now the Zuni said that when they saw 9/11 in theirs before it happened, it looks like the water. It looks like, waters. It's just flowy. Just like the actual movie called Stargate with Kurt Russell. The way it looks inside that Stargate, like the gooey water looking stuff, that's how it's described from like the head of the Zuni nation. And this one here in Hellboy, this is the one that that Nimrod had. This is what it looked like right there. The wheels within the wheels.
Oh, I wouldn't want to go through that. Looks like a fan.
Well, it opens
wasn't
up.
Rasputin a real person too?
Yes.
What's that now?
Wasn't Rasputin a real person?
He was, yeah. He was.
Absolutely.
That's how the Russians got their technology from Baalbek, because of that guy, that Rasputin guy.
I mean, I wouldn't want to jump through that. That looks like danger. Like,
well, that opens it up. See that? Watch, you'll see what it does. That opens. This is the one that opens the portal to heaven. So it didn't have exactly like that thing right there. You didn't go through that. That opened up the portal for Nimrod. That's how. And it says they saw God and God saw them.
Oh, okay.
I firmly believe. There you go, right here.
Oh.
I firmly believe that the first 10 minutes of Hellboy is probably more truth than you will ever get on another movie. That is just my opinion. But this right here, this was 100%, I believe, the Nazis achieved this.
What does that look like right there? It looks like the Black Sun, the Storchensana.
Yes.
That's exactly, I mean.
Exactly. And we have these things all over the world, okay? When you, okay, I'm going to show you, here's, and I'm going to pull a bunch of them up if I can find them. I used to be able to get them very quickly. Here's one in China. Now, the thing with this is again, it's right by the water. All of the stargates that we see, this one in China is by the water. We see the Hoover Dam is a Stargate. That's again by water. We see the St. Louis Arch is a Stargate, again by water. We see they're mostly, all of them are by water.
So Hoover Dam's a Stargate?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on a second. I'll show you. I'll show you.
I mean, because I've driven over it lots of times.
Didn't we talk about this a while back, Lori?
Well, it has to be activated. I mean, it's not like it's not like you just look down and you see, oh, it's right here.
I was just thinking the fallen angels were entrapped under there, but I didn't know it was like an actual Stargate.
Yeah, let me see.
Well, the Colorado River, I mean, that's all. They got so many, the citadels underneath the Colorado River in these caverns and these cities and the dumb bases. They're all, they have all that there.
Oh, and this goes along with birthing and breaking the water.
Because when you if you remember my video that I've showed you guys about the Hoover Dam, how it looks like a woman's.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all, and here's the funny thing. If you look at the birthing with the water, why do they depict Ishtar with that damn egg? Because that's, you're not human if you come from we come from an egg, obviously. I'm talking about like an egg. Like you think of a chicken egg. Reptile serpents are born out of an egg. And it's why do they have Ishtar of an egg, but then they talk about the birthing? That's a mystery to me that I'm going to figure out one day.
Well, maybe because she's a chimera, so she has both.
Well, yeah, because she's totally just trashy to me. I don't care for her whatsoever. And it's like, but it's like they if you want to go with the aspect of what they talk about now, which I see all over now about the dang Jesus and Mary Magdalene having these kids, it's like, why do they have the apotheosis with this particular born of an egg, and then they have the Lord? Because like I said before, I don't know, I don't want to get into it again because it makes me angry, but I'm trying to think, what is the correlation between that? Why would they show birthing of the waters in the womb, but but it's also an egg to them?
Right.
You know what?
I mean,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you go.
I was thinking, Lori, you remember that video I sent you a while back, the Crown Conspiracy, that talks about maritime admiralty law?
Yes.
You know how the narrator described maritime law as being birthed in the water? You know what? That kind of reminds me of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, you got your birth certificate, your waters, you're born of the waters.
Y'all know who talked about that? Jordan Maxwell.
He did.
He talked about that. He was the only person. I don't know if anybody else did, but I can only find Jordan Maxwell talking about your birth certificate being that we're under maritime law. Even he said if your name is capitalized on a letter, that's only certified if it's capital because of maritime law.
It goes along with the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz had to do with the whole maritime thing, and also had to do with the Federal Reserve. They had the Tin Man, the TIN, the tax identification number, the straw man. The Wizard of Oz, OZ, gold.
Wow.
And the wizard was just it was all like in their head. They were afraid of him, but there was really nothing to be afraid of, because who was he? He was just a mere man. And their strongest gifts were what they thought was their weakness.
Right.
And exactly. I think that's what it is in real life. Absolutely. I think a lot of times we're very insecure because we've been told we're no good at this or that. And that's actually our biggest gift.
And
the funny thing is, with that movie, it seems like a whistleblowing documentary.
Well, the Wizard of Oz was a telegraphy movie. It was one of the very first ones. But they have to tell us in advance. Let me pull this up for us here. And I pull this up all the time for us to show us here. And I'll read it to us if I can find it.
That looks like a cool site. What is that?
This is the site that I go on. Hold on just a second. Just give me 2 seconds here.
Okay.
Always takes me a minute to find it. But it talks about telegraphing. God, I wonder if they changed the site. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. It says, according to Kabbalistic rituals, one has to tell his cursed victim that they are cursed. Therefore, when they die, even after knowing what is about to happen to them, the supreme supernatural power of the occult is revealed and glorified to the entire world. Satanists of all stripes love to glory in their power, and they love to tell their victim what is about to happen to them, and then see the victim unable, totally powerless to prevent their demise. So when they tell us, they have no choice to tell us. They have to tell us because it's according to their Kabbalistic law. So when they did this with the Wizard of Oz, and they told us about the straw man, the tin, the Wizard of Oz, the ounce, the gold, the golden brick road, all of these things. It wasn't their fault that it took us 40 years to decipher the movie. They told us.
Yeah, they sure did.
They absolved themselves from the karma that would come without them telling us.
Well, it's because they had so many flying monkeys coming at us. I mean, seriously, anytime I would question things as a kid, I'd have a flying monkey come at me and tell me, "Oh, you're just and then they would make fun of me. And
what you call me?
That's Agent Smith. Agent Smith, when you're talking to somebody and you hit that nerve, that cognitive dissonant nerve in their skull, and all of a sudden they turn on you, that's Agent Smith coming out from the Matrix.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've had those my whole life. I mean, because even as a little kid, I even questioned Santa Claus. Sorry, but I didn't believe that. I was like, why does that handwriting look like my mom's? And how does that fat man get down that chimney?
Right.
Exactly. I had so many questions, and everybody, oh, come on. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Oh, okay. But that was my whole life with everything.
I went to a Catholic school, and every time they got to Genesis 6, everybody would look at me, and the teacher would roll her eyes and be like, here we go. Lori's going to start asking the hard questions. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yep. About them old giants. They don't want to tell you about them giants.
No. They just, and I, looking back on it, I question, did the priests or the nuns that were my teachers, did they just not know, or did they know and just told not to? I don't know.
That's funny. That's funny. Y'all say that you have like the question. Now, Santa Claus, yeah, I guess that's pretty common for everybody. But anything biblical. Now, I was forced to go to Catholic church because everybody where I was from at the time was Catholic, right? And I just couldn't get the idea of some guy coming down and they beat him up and put him on a cross and he died for my sin. I was just like, well, why? Why would that happen? To me, that was just so hard to believe.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I sat there during that mass every Sunday, and what do you get? 2 readings from Paul to whoever, and then
but they don't explain it.
Yeah, I guarantee, and I've caught flack on some of my first TikToks about that because they talk about when y'all leave, we're gonna have a hamburger fundraiser, and everybody talks about them damn hamburgers. Nobody ever would discuss anything that Paul wrote, nothing. And I'm like, okay, this Paul character, but I just. And I even went to catechism, and of course, you go to catechism with your buddies from school, and you're not talking about anything I do with the Lord,
right.
And it's just, I don't know. I was just like, you know what, this is a time away from my parents' house, and I get to see my buddies again. We're cracking up, this and that, and I never asked a question. So when I have my moment, it turns into Osiris, and he's the real savior, and exactly how he was on the earth, the first Antichrist. And like y'all know my story about being slapped and being prayed for and all these things. And the Lord shows up, and it's like, but it still wasn't. I didn't learn about this whole giant thing until a week later, after I converted to a believer. Then it was like, oh, okay. So I mean, maybe I always thought to myself, maybe it happened the way the Lord needed it to happen, obviously, but I never heard of that. I heard of Goliath, thought he was just an Andre the Giant kind of guy, but they never mentioned anything about his 6 fingers. Nothing that the indigenous tribes drew that. None of that is talked about. And you can
growing up, I never ever had a firm belief from what I was told in school and about Christmas, about Easter. There was just always something off with it to me. Like I went to Catholic church once or twice, and I immediately felt uncomfortable there. So
I've always felt uncomfortable in a Catholic church, even though I went to a Catholic school.
And I'm like, why are they worshiping a statue? Yeah. I've always thought that as a little kid.
You know what? That's true. That's true. But
I was bothered by the fact that they hung a dead man on a cross, and I know what they say is because he died for us, and I get that. But to me, isn't it like when they kill, like, was it Saddam that they killed, and then they like parade his body around town, like, and some tribes would like scalp someone.
That was Gaddafi.
And so to me, that's barbaric to say, look what I did. This is my kill, and they're showing it off. How do you know that's not what I'm not anti-Catholic. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's something wrong with that.
Well, when the occult has their black masses, or when they have their back masking of the Catholic mass, they're actually physically, incantations to bring Christ back to kill him again. Like,
no doubt.
To torture and have that torture on him. That is, I mean, if you research, I think it was, who was it that was talking about that? It's something to do with cloning. How they Marshall, wasn't it Marshall that talked about when he was in the cloning centers, and they used to have these black masses, and he would swear that he would be able to hear, Christ screaming on the cross.
That's very possible.
I can't even get through the Jesus movies where I watch him dying slowly. I cry, and especially when they let Barabbas go. I can't.
Because you feel it. You know what I mean? It's like that's real. That's real to you. Now, I don't know. I don't remember when Passion of the Christ came out, but I don't think I was. I think I totally was at war with him. But when I watched that, I just felt, as much as I hated him at the time, I just felt like, wow, that's I don't like that happening to him. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's not. I say it's weird, but that was just in the moment. But it's like, even though he did those things to me, I knew that he had to, and he was right by doing it. He was right. He was doing exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and doesn't it break your heart that, like, the people he loved and and how they were spitting on him and calling him names and hating on him, and it's like, how? Why? What did he ever do? I just don't understand humans, I guess. I don't understand, because why? Why would you have so much hate and vitriol for somebody who's done nothing but good? I don't understand.
Here's the thing. Because he suffered first, we're going to suffer the same fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. That's exactly it.
He knew that. So he led the way for us. And as far as you feeling it, him like dying and stuff like that, of course we're going to feel it. We have the fingerprint of God within us, in our DNA. So we're going to be feeling what he felt. You see what I'm saying? And as far as like hate goes, hate doesn't come from the Most High. Hate corrupted man from Adam and Eve.
And that's just a feeling. I mean, I've had enemies in my life, but I don't hate them. I've never hated anyone. I don't understand that emotion. And that's why I get really upset when the left always uses that term, you hate, hater. And it's like, I'm far from hating.
I don't hate
I
anybody.
speak truth because I love. And
well,
I'm
that's
trying
just
to
a
warn
playbook.
people.
That's a playbook that Luciferians have, is that they use the whole human emotion thing against humans. And it's like, it's what they do. And then they'll say you're doing it. And it works. It works every time.
Yeah, it does.
When you commit a sin, they'll make you feel bad for committing the sin too.
Yeah. It works every time. They'll do it and they'll be like, no, you did it. And everybody's like, yeah, he did it.
What is that called? Narcissists do that.
Yeah, it's gaslighting.
It's bad.
Okay. Yeah.
It works. It works because it's a ritual. It's a ritual. It goes back to Cain and Abel.
It
goes back to Cain and Abel. He told him, hey, why your sacrifice as good as your brother's. That's gaslighting, and it got him going. And it's
Here's the thing is, I've lived through an abusive relationship with a narcissist, with a person who gaslit me. Like, I mean, looking back now, I didn't know what it was then. I know what it is now. Mm-hmm. And I used to think at that time, I'm like, because I went out of that relationship right into another one who the guy had the same playbook. And I'm thinking to myself, I think, where did these guys get the same playbook? How did they learn? These are two different
men. They must have a class. And I think women are even more vicious.
But I think, and this is my opinion, but I think that is a demon that is in them that knows the rituals to do it.
Because they all do the same behavior.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's all the same playbook because they don't know anything else. And it's like, and I've heard numerous times that they'll say, I'll ask questions sometimes, that, hey, did that person ever have any kind of like shark eyes? Did they have, did their eyes change? And they're like, oh yeah, the eyes change. It's like everyone tells the same story about the man is mean or the woman's mean. And it's like always, the eyes always change.
I could tell when Mark was changing, his eyes would go black.
That's it. It's the entity, it's like it, because like I said before, men as in mankind, men and women, you just don't wake up and do that. You are influenced to have that entity with you.
Yeah.
You just don't wake up and say, I'm gonna be mean.
Yeah, that's true. And then they try to say, well, because their parents did it to them. Well, look, I had an abusive life growing up, but it made me the opposite. It made me very protective, and I go out of my way to sugarcoat and try to, like not be that way. So I don't understand.
I had many conversations with Mark's mother, and I asked her, because she knew the way he was. She even wrote me a long email one time apologizing for the way he treated me. And I asked her, I said, what happened to him? What happened in his life? And she goes, I don't know. He had the best bringing up. He had everything he wanted. He was loved. He was, she goes, I don't understand it. I don't know. Something, I keep saying something had to have happened.
Yeah, it did. And the thing is, don't ever underestimate the thorn in your side, because that can morph into an entity.
Oh, you mean like holding resentment?
Oh yeah, anything. Yeah. All that is all spirits. Emotion is spiritual. It's not. Right. Adam and Eve didn't know what that was when they got tossed out of that garden. How are they going to teach Cain and Abel what human emotion was? They didn't know what that was.
That's why God is calling us to forgive.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's one of the hardest things to do.
Because keep a sound mind. That's what He keeps with us. No fear, sound mind. But sound mind is that it's like know your role basically. But don't let the emotions get to you. Just like it goes back to any piece of the gospel armor. It all controls emotions. Every piece of armor is for a piece of emotion that you need to be protected from.
And by to add on to everything as far as like forgiveness goes, we have to be Christ-like, because He's forgiven us. I mean, the Bible says that forgive others as Jesus has forgiven you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very powerful statement.
It's easier said than done too.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. I think that's why He said,
that increases your spirit and makes your relationship with God that much more strong.
Yeah.
I had past that I had to forgive, and it was hard.
Oh yeah, I
eventually did. And you talking about something lifted outside of you?
Yeah.
That was an entity.
Oh, 100%. That you're right, Ernie. That forgiving something, I'm the proprietor of being like, I'm gonna get you one day. But if you forgive, you're right. It's hard. It really is. I'm not to say that I'm a good example of that, because it's hard. But if you can forgive, I respect somebody really highly for forgiving people that have done bad to them. I'm like, you know what? You're better than me. That I can't. It's hard for me to do that. But if somebody can do it, I have very high respect for that person.
Yeah, you too. I find it hard to forgive, especially if I've already forgiven a person and they do it again to me.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time forgiving that.
The Bible says forgive, but it does not say forget.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also part of it is if the way I was able to forgive my mom, for example, because my mom was very neglectful, and but it was hard because she had a lot of mental issues. But then when I realized that she was, sexually abused and all that as a child, then I realized, I felt so much empty, because I could say, oh, no wonder. Okay, so she was just so broken. She did not know how to be a mom. She kind of stopped at 5. She kind of stopped. So she had a very vicious side, but then she had like a 5-year-old side. So there was like, I didn't have like a normal mom like most people, right? Because we didn't have like
hurt people.
Yeah.
I got a question.
But
I have a question. How did we turn away from Tartaria?
I don't know.
It does happen. Because listen, it gets on that side to where we talk about people's emotions, and then it just Tartaria is awesome. But when you talk about people's emotions, how like it opens up so much about how people can heal. And then I always think about it like this: somebody out there is listening that needed to hear that. So it's not that we go off topic. It's just that part of the spirit is so powerful that somebody needed to hear that, at some point, like a divine appointment. And then that's why
I think I was the one that needed to hear that. And I'll tell you when we get off the air, because I and Ernie knows. I needed to hear that at that very moment, because I was thinking some very not so nice thoughts about certain people and planned on retaliation. Let's just put it that way. And I get it now.
Lori,
it's true. It's like I said, I'm the bad person for that. But I was told a long time ago, vengeance only destroys the avenger.
Yeah,
that's true. And I noticed that people who held on, like my mom is one of those people that she held on to all this anger and hurt, and now she's cancer, and she's just falling apart left and right, and it's like she hasn't learned to forgive, and I think that's just eating her up from the inside out. I'm not saying everybody who has cancer has that problem, but I'm just saying that it's not good for your health to hold on to that.
It's true.
It'll destroy you physically and spiritually.
Yeah.
I hate the fact, and this is a whole other topic, but people that are sexually hurt when they're children, and then programmed, and that's all damn Luciferian stuff, and it just, I cannot stand that. I can't even keep my composure. If somebody's like, well, it's like, no, that person needs to be dealt with. It's like it's a program. They're not, they're not just like people, that are, child molesters that go to prison or whatever. It's like, well, no, they'll go to prison. No, they'll do stuff in prison that they like.
Yeah.
If you unless they're taken out,
the Bible is clear that if you even harm a child, there is a special place in hell for you.
100%.
Millstone around their neck, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's one thing Jesus really said a consequence was. He never talked about any other sin that ain't got no consequence. He never said it.
No, he never said
the sin is death, right? We know that, but he particularly put that, said put that bill around your neck before you got to deal with me, bud.
Yep.
And now it's just so common. It's like on every time you turn on the computer or something.
But again, that's Luciferian. That's the Luciferian part of it.
They're rubbing it in our face.
They want to normalize sexual deviation.
They want to. They already have. Look at that company that we've been talking about the past couple of days, Lori.
Yes.
I'll say this. This is how I feel, and we can go back to Tartaria or whatever y'all want to go with it. I think Osiris is back in town. I think the whole sexual revolution that we ain't gonna like. I don't think we like the first one in the 60s or whatever. This one that's here now, this whole perverted, disgusting, it's back. It is back.
Yes,
I know it is.
Bad. And it's
Osiris and Ishtar, their whole agenda of what they did in that damn temple with what you see is back in full swing, and it's going to get worse. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Right. And when you look at history, when you look at Roman and Greek history, they had bathhouses where these things went on. This was common to them. And when the whole pizza thing went on a few years ago, and we were exposing that, and I'm not going to get into too much of that because I lost a whole channel for exposing that. But when we're talking about that, and I did some research, that was common back in Rome and Greek. They liked them
easily. Oh my gosh, they loved it.
Them young.
And
that's how the power.
And Cappy showed something like that on his whatever switch, Deadman switch. It didn't make any sense, and it wasn't. I mean, but he was alluding to that, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you expose that, that's the only thing that gets you killed when you expose that particular event of the Luciferians.
Because of the high ranking.
But the power, you expose the paradigm and the dimension shifts on that, and it's hard for them to get it back.
Exactly. Going on this a little bit, kind of on this topic, but not on this topic, talking about kids, and we had discussed before, I'm going to try to put us back around to Tartaria. We had talked before about the tens of thousands of orphanages that were around the world at the time, back in the 17 and 18, early 1900s. And we asked the question about where all the parents went. Why were there just numbers of children? Trish, I didn't have a chance to watch that video tonight, but you sent me earlier today. But if we were to end with that video tonight, would that take us into next week and where we could talk about depopulation and the kids?
It definitely raises a lot of questions when you watch it. It's, I would probably skip through maybe the first portion of it, maybe it would go about halfway, and then it goes into the whole orphans, and it's pretty compelling. I mean, there's so many photos.
Okay.
There's hundreds of photos that video flips through, and looks like these kids they just popped up out of nowhere. So it kind of makes you scratch your, I don't want to give it away.
Okay, so why don't we do this? So this is a 13-minute video that'll take us up to just about 5 or 7 minutes out of the top of the hour that we're going to be ending. And then we can come back, we could talk a little bit about it, and that will take us into next week when we talk about the orphan trains and the mystery of the children. Okay, let's do that.
Search on Old World Photoshop, we began to notice a trend with old postcards from the 1900s showing early examples of compositing. There isn't much information on these. If there's a catalog, it's not easy to come by. But many of these are early examples of photo manipulation. They had surreal, real photo postcards, in which they would attempt to trick people with the illusion of photography. As we continued to look through these old postcards, a very strange and unsettling trend started to become apparent. It began with just simple baby postcards. At first thought, seems like any ordinary postcard. But as with the same sky postcard mystery, where the author began to see a trend of a variety of postcards, well, there's a category of postcards that deserves its own name and label, but it doesn't seem very well known, as there are no websites or videos explaining this topic. We shall call it the mystery of the repopulation postcards. There are other names for this style, such as baby postcards. By the end of this video, you'll be shocked at how many of these there are. We're talking in the thousands. We found one reference to what these cards were in a book on Amazon named Babylon, Surreal Babies, in which the author describes these same peculiar 1900s postcards and how they were deeply influential to many famous artists, including Salvador Dali. Yet, the author even admits that little is known of their history. In order to understand why we've labeled them repopulation postcards, a thorough understanding of resets, Tartaria, orphan trains, incubators, asylums, and oddfellows will be necessary. These cards depict babies being grown. There are many different styles within this category. One of the most interesting is the Cabbage Patch Babies, a variety of themes involving growing babies. Babies on plants, babies on mushrooms, babies in the water, babies in a nest, babies in eggs being hatched. Then the babies arrive on the train. There's something eerie about these photos, as if someone's trying to tell us something.
We've also got kids in Cabbage Patches. Does this have anything to do with the Cabbage Patch Kids? So, where do babies come from? In the early 1900s, the most common answer given to children would simply be that the stork would bring the babies, or that they were found in a cabbage patch. But why would babies be found in cabbage patches? The legend of the Cabbage Patch Kids involves a young boy named Xavier who meets a mystical fairy bunny bee creature, so a hybrid or chimera, and he follows this bunny bee through a secret tunnel behind a waterfall. On the other side of this waterfall, he finds that babies are being produced in a cabbage patch. The stork, known as Colonel Casey, would then come and pick up the babies. He even has his own uniform. So he's a worker, a soldier, as well as the Cabbage Patch Kids' official historian that would then deliver the babies to their new homes. Not only that, but there's an evil witch named Lavender McDay. She and her weasel and jackrabbit henchmen are literally trying to enslave the Cabbage Patch Kids to be miners to dig for gold in the valley. You can get all the exposition for the lore in the story through their 10-song album. It goes over how they were created, to the witch, to even a lament about their enslavement. It's pretty dark. The original concept for the cloth dolls was created by Martha Nelson Thomas, and she called them doll babies. And the story really had nothing to do with cabbages or chimeras or witches. It wasn't until Xavier Roberts, or Xavier, like the little boy in the story, hijacked her design that it became what it is today. So I can't help but wonder if Xavier Roberts just came up with the story all on his own. Like, did it come to him from the collective consciousness? Or does he just have a soft spot for child labor? There's actually a place you can go in White County, Georgia, where they do live births, and you can look it up on YouTube to see what I'm talking about. The bunny bee character also is a hybrid creature of two animals that both symbolize rebirth and resurrection on a mass scale. As we know, rabbits reproduce in droves, and the bee symbolism makes me think of a hive, or a queen or source where all the offsprings originate from. It would seem that this is some sort of reference to babies being created in a lab on a mass scale. Why were there so many orphans? Most common answer will be, the baby boom. But this didn't happen until 1946 to 1964. These postcards are from 1890 to 1910. And there's really no explanation for the burst of orphans that we see being brought into the United States, or the amount of orphanages and asylums that exist that no longer seem to be necessary. Could the baby boom narrative be a way to sweep this part of history under the rug? The orphanages were all shut down, and after the 60s, people just stopped having babies and getting married after World War II, according to the narrative. Then there were the incubators of the 1900s. It's difficult to keep premature babies alive with modern technology, yet they were doing this back in 1835 in Europe. They turned this into a sideshow, where at the world fairs they would show off these child hatcheries, these incubators of live children, and for some reason, the royals would come and witness these events. So there's this genetic manipulation cloning idea, in which these babies are actually being grown in some sort of pods. Perhaps the symbolism of the Cabbage Patch mirrors that process. Humans do resemble plants in the way that we're connected to a stem in our fetal state, and our whole lives are spent ripening. In the fetal abduction theory, we typically see a nurse-looking woman with either a fishing hook or a fishing net pulling a child out of the water. Perhaps the hook and net represent medical tools and the water amniotic fluid. In either scenario, it would make sense that these babies have to end up in incubators or hatcheries. And it begs the question, how did all these premature babies get here? If women back in, these days were having babies prematurely, why in such large numbers? And the babies all being babies, they'd have to have traveled there somehow within a short period of time. What are the chances that so many premature babies were driven from wherever their mothers were to these incubators all in time? And why do they charge people to view them as if this was some sort of exhibition or sideshow and not a pressing matter of life and death? For centuries, the stork has been thought of as a symbol for new beginnings in family lineage. The idea that this creature represents life-giving events also makes sense because storks are monogamous creatures, and they mate only once every year with their partners that they've chosen beforehand, choosing mates based solely on personality instead of looks, like many other birds. Now we've got kids inside a train. Orphan trains. Why so many orphans? Were these orphans taken from their families? Were they trained to instruct a new generation of genetically created babies? Or were they womb-napped babies? And we've got kids growing on trees, kids being carried by storks. The Greek goddess Hera and her Roman counterpart Juno also favor the stork. And I'm sure you guys remember that quirky little teen pregnancy movie from the 2000s. And I suspect that Artemis of Ephesus is an ancient fertility symbol used by the elite to signify their ability to reseed a new population. So we've got hooks removing babies, kids in the water with a woman holding a net or fishing rod. The water, the amniotic fluid, pulling children from the wombs of their mothers, perhaps? Could that be why there are so many premature babies? Or are they genetically manipulated? Cloning is not impossible. Just look at Miracle Millie. I think that the movie Aeon Flux is a great example. Hollywood is definitely alluding to this reality of artificial repopulation. The Cabbage Patch Kids sort of reminds me of those medieval occult books that depict humans growing from roots in the grounds or mandrakes, which are known to have occult properties for making one go insane.
Babies are also ready to join their elite clubs, and they're even given top hats. Technology, clothes, and empty cities? Babies floating in on boats, all signifying children being born or found and then taken by the mother, the one with the basket. Yet, this is a figure that represents the government's function as a mother, a corporate operation of generating foundlings in order to fill their newly emptied and burned cities with new humans. Whoever made these postcards are trying to tell us something very dark about the world we live in, as if it's humorous. There's an extraordinary amount of work put into these early photo manipulations. One would think there should be a good resource for these old postcards, but they are rare and difficult to find. Babies with hats. Babies in the empty cities. Babies with new technology. Babies in the classroom. Babies being brought in boats. And babies being grown in a variety of different situations. Is this some type of clever reference to the cloning of humans? We know of the sudden rise in orphans during the 1800s, but where do they all come from? Where do babies come from? All we can hope is that our minds may be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true.
Wow.
That has Ishtar written all over it. That's exactly what that is. 100% the bunny and the bee.
Disgusted right now.
That is that's what they worship. When I told y'all, they said they got their queen, and they said, "Nah, she's already been brought back through the gate." Ishtar is back on the scene. Her and Osiris, they somewhere. They're up and at them.
Wow. We were talking on the back private chat here while we were watching that, and I'm going to get a hold of Hurricane Ann because she's done a lot of research. A lot of research on Chicago, and she discovered that during the Chicago World's Fair, they had these incubators, and people paid to see the incubator. Why would people pay? Why were people paying to see babies?
Maybe they were different. Maybe they had black eyes.
Maybe they weren't just paying to see the babies. Maybe they were shopping.
I think it's because if an incubator is an egg, right? It's a capsule.
Yeah,
that grows them. It basically grows a child. It helps them survive and grow, whether they're from a sperm and an egg or cloned or whatever they're from. Transduceism. That's why I got out of that transduceism stuff. So, because I think that's the most dangerous topic you can get into. So the whole thing is, if it comes from the elites, they're going to see exactly what it said. The fertility goddess, that is Ishtar, Artemis, Sophia. It's all the same. It's her. It's that broad from.
John, do you think the launch of Artemis is some sort of another occult ritual?
100%. Artemis, yeah, because the rabbit in the moon is Ishtar. There's a bunny shadow in the moon they talk about because it's a rebirth. Okay, so Artemis is her. So yeah, going back to the moon, yeah, that's why they named their rocket that. It is some kind of ritual.
Wow.
To start something off, right?
Yeah, whether you think the moon is a hologram or a light or a rock or whatever, I think Phil Schneider got that piece of metal from the mining operations on the moon. I think there's a base up there.
Yeah.
I think that the Artemis rocket can go up there, but yeah, it's for they named it the Artemis to go back to the moon because Ishtar is the moon. It's a fertility goddess.
You know what? I'm speaking code right now. So hopefully you guys get what I said. what I'm going to say. You need to travel safely. Traffic is pretty heavy. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were doing.
Well, what's interesting is that yeah, you're right. Yeah, I got to think for a minute. Yeah. I was going to say something and I forgot what it was. It had to do with Artemis.
Sorry, I stumped you.
No, you totally threw me for a minute. Wow. Yeah. It had to do with Artemis, had to go returning to the moon, because it just seems, wasn't it just like a couple of years ago we had a video put out about the guy that says that we can't go back to the moon because we lost lost the technology, and then all of a sudden there's Artemis and we're going back to the moon. And when you look at all of these things and all of these rituals, my question is, are they bringing something back or taking something up there? Because there's always a purpose for something. Again, are we on a hunt, on a, are we looking for things? Are we going? I don't know. That's the question that my mind goes to.
Here's one thing. We know that the Vatican built that telescope because they're waiting on something.
Yes.
To get here.
Yes.
Whether it's, I think that the actual bodies of Ishtar and Osiris are up and at them right now on the planet. Now, here's the thing: if you want to go into the whole flat Earth or firmament and you can't get past it, whatever. Here's what I know. I know who can get past it, and I know that there are certain humans that are buddies with these people. Obviously not people, entities that can get past it. So even though you can make a big argument, well, yeah, these rockets. I've seen the videos that shows the SpaceX rockets. Looks like it's in water. It looks like it's rubbing against the firmament. Well, that's a rocket that's made, not to go past it. But but these entities they can do it, and there are humans with them that can also do it, and they are having these plans to introduce, whether bring the atmosphere back, bring the technology back. They're going to the moon and they're going to Mars. They're doing all these things.
Yeah.
I know that. I know they are, because they're not secluded like us. It's such a level. They have to be a level higher than a human. So is that
the reasons for them getting these portals? Because they're using the portals
to get through. Yeah, the portals. It's a dimensional veil. It moves the waters. If you say that heaven, if there's a firmament, then guess what? Nimrod went through it, and he saw God through the waters, if you want to say it.
Well, they better be prepared and have as much spiritual firepower as possible, because when Jesus is coming back, he's coming back with a sword.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I come not with peace, but with a sword. Yeah, I was going to say that earlier about when we talked about the emotional side about, the Lord and everything. I think Matthew chapter 10 I call that the special forces briefing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show this part here. This is the part that we're talking about. Is this part?
Oh yeah, Stargate. Yep.
Right here. Look at this. This is what we're talking about. This is how they get through the waters above, correct?
Yeah, that's it. That's what the head of the Zuni Nation talked about on a private talk years ago. That it's the waters.
Yep.
Inside the Stargate, and that's how they go through it.
Yep. Wow.
So the technology to go through it, it may be true. Every flat earther may be true with that, right? They're correct, but the technology exists that they don't have.
Right.
That certain people have, and they're not really people, they are fallen entities that can move through it. Because who's to say that Rahab didn't have a firmament? Mars had an atmosphere.
Right.
God took it away because he didn't want nothing to survive and live there.
Right.
Well, you look at Moses, who parted the Red Sea.
Again, yeah, kind of looks like the Stargate, the parting. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Well, we definitely have to continue this conversation next week with the whole population and the children, and we're going to get into the incubators because I also want to get into next week talking about the cities, the pictures with no people in these cities. We kind of touched on that a couple of weeks ago. I want to continue with that because they mentioned that in the video that we just played, talking about how these kids were taken to these cities with that had no population. So we're going to get into that as well. So, all right, guys. Well, we at 2 hours. We are at the end of it. Coming back again next week, John, is what I'm assuming.
I'll be back.
All righty. And so we will continue with part 4 and continue the series of Tartaria and the hidden history. So yeah, Ernie, final thought?
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason why I love having panels on there, because we can put our collective minds together and figure things out. And the things that we have uncovered by our critical thinking is starting to answer a lot of questions that many people may have, including myself. But to know your future is to know your past.
That's right.
And
for the future, you got to go back in time.
Exactly. And that's something that has been taken away from us. And I believe it's our calling to bring it back, to find it. And it may ruffle a few feathers, but we come boldly in the name of Jesus. We do this all for the glory of the Most High God. We do all of this because God wants us to know our history. And I'm just not talking about the people of Israel. I'm talking about everybody who's grafted onto God's tree of life, who is written in the Lamb's book of life.
He tells us in the end times, all shall be revealed.
Exactly.
What is hidden shall come to light. So yeah,
and it's starting to, and it's not just coming from us. It's coming everywhere, and it's getting to the point where mainstream is going to have to start talking about it.
Yeah. Unless they shut that down. I think I foresee them shutting that down before they have to start answering the hard questions. So, looking at all of this technology, this hidden technology, this fallen angel technology, there's nothing new under the sun. So whatever we show on the screen, whatever we talk about, it's already happened and is coming to pass again.
And for those who are aware of the things we're not supposed to talk about, they've perfected that.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And this is just a precursor. It's my firm belief that the true technology will be released when the Son of Perdition claims his throne in the temple. Yeah. And that's going to be your mark. And there will be something that symbolizes so people can view and see that you have taken the mark. Like, all the technology is there. And what people are getting right now, it was the beginning phases that's probably developed thousands of years ago.
Yeah. This was their beta test. They did this to test us.
Yeah, they got the real version.
They certainly do. John, final thought?
I would say that everybody should start definitely going back to the basic principle of talking for Jesus Christ. That's what I say. Everything I get up every day and I like I said, I try to go do my job and this and that, but it's just what's coming to like reality is the revelations. Whether they're playing it by the playbook to trick us, and I'm just saying that because that they think they're doing that, and I'm sure that's a topic, but I know that it's true because it's the words of Christ, and I just think that we could talk about all these things, and I'm not going from it because this is where I come from about talking about this stuff, but I think it's just everybody should definitely hold on to the anchor of Jesus, and just any way they can get a relationship, make it stronger, whatever, because the time's coming.
Yeah, time is short.
It's not fear mongering. I'm not anything can happen. Obviously the Lord can do whatever he wants with us, and but it's like, you know what, stick to the basics.
Exactly.
Get back to the Lord. It don't matter, you know, whether you're the hardcore believer or nothing at all. Get to him. Get
Make sure
something
the
going with it.
foundation is stable. You don't
Yeah.
want to build the foundation on
exactly.
sand. You want to build it on a rock, which is our Lord and Savior.
Amen.
Like I said, we can have great topics, but it's in the end, stick to the basics of this.
In the end, it's about salvation. It's about firming up your foundation in Christ and building your relationship and understanding that these things are going to come to pass. There's going to be hardcore decisions that are going to have to be made by you and your family. You need to understand what's coming. You need to understand what those decisions are going to be and what the ramifications and the of each of those decisions. So. Yeah.
And don't live in fear. For
no, not at all.
Like I said, don't
we
be
don't
fearful.
live in the spirit of the spirit of fear doesn't come from the Most High God, but
Yeah.
He wants us to have power, love, and a sound mind.
Exactly.
And we find that in Him.
And I don't want you guys to think that we are fear mongering. I don't want you to take anything that we say as fact. I want you guys to do your own research. The Bible tells us, test all things, study to show thyself approved. We give you enough information underneath in the description area. I'm going to list all of the links that we've talked about, that we've used tonight. Use those. Get out your notebooks, start taking notes on your own, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions. So, Trisha, final thought?
No, it's just I'm very blessed to know you guys, and wow, it's just great to have other people that like to brainstorm and troubleshoot this, and Jesus plus nothing.
Exactly. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Everybody in the chat room. I want to thank all of our moderators once again for helping us out and for being there. A lot of people are asking about the fellowshipping. As soon as my husband recoups, I promise that we will get the men's fellowship and the women's fellowship up and going. I just finding it hard to keep a business going and to do everything that I have to. So as soon as he's on the mend and he's well and back to work, I promise you guys, I will put up a video and we will get those men's and fellowship going, women's and men's fellowship going as soon as possible. So so remember guys, we will be back hopefully on Sunday night. I'm not sure what the topic is. Actually, no, I do know what the topic is going to be. Ernie, what is it? We're going to talk about the sun.
Yes, the sun is different than what we are accustomed to in the past.
Yeah, and we've got some information. There's a lot of videos out there showing about the sun pulsating. There's some things coming out of China about them having an imitation sun. There's just a lot of things that we're going to talk about. Mr. MBBB333, I think he is on YouTube, have been talking a lot about the sun. So that's going to be the topic for Sunday night. So we will see you all back then. And until then, remember guys, eyes open, no fear.